So 2 Chronicles 35, Josiah is still the king of Israel. He is still reigning in righteousness and helping the people out. But he's going to run into a problem in this chapter. Now let's jump in. Verse 1, Moreover, Josiah kept a Passover unto the Lord in Jerusalem, and they killed the Passover on the 14th day of the first month. And he set the priests in their charges and encouraged them to service of the house of the Lord. And said unto the Levites that taught all Israel, which were holy unto the Lord, Put the holy ark in the house which Solomon, the son of David, king of Israel, did build. It shall not be a burden upon your shoulders. Serve now the Lord your God and his people Israel. So put the ark back in the temple. You don't need to hide it and preserve it from, because we got rid of the idols. We've got some righteousness going on. Let's bring it all back, basically. Verse 4, And prepare yourselves by the houses of your fathers after your courses, according to the writing of David king of Israel, and according to the writing of Solomon his son. And stand in the holy place according to the divisions of the families of the fathers of your brethren the people, and after the division of the families of the Levites. So this sounds really familiar to Josiah's, great-great-grandfather Hezekiah. He's kind of did that same thing of restoring everything back. Verse 6, So kill the Passover and sanctify yourselves and prepare your brethren that they may do according to the word of the Lord by the hand of Moses. And Josiah gave to the people of the flock lambs and kids and all for the Passover offerings and for all that were present to the number of 30,000 and 3,000 bullocks. These were of the king's substance. So they're giving to help the people so that they can worship and fulfill the sacrifices. If they don't have enough, the king's offering them an opportunity to have animals they can use for sacrifice. Verse 8, and his princes gave willingly unto the people, to the priests and to the Levites. Hilkiah and Zechariah and Jehiel, the rulers of the house of God, gave unto the priests for the Passover offerings 2,600 small cattle and 300 oxen. And Conaniah, also, and Shemaiah and Nethaneel, his brethren, and Hashbiah and Jael and Josabad, chief of the Levites, gave unto the Levites for Passover offerings 5,000 small cattle and 500 oxen. So the service was prepared, and the priests stood in their place, and the Levites in their courses, according to the king's commandment. And they killed the Passover, and the priests sprinkled the blood from their hands, and the Levites flayed them. And they removed the burnt offerings, that they might give according to the divisions of the families of the people, to offer unto the Lord, as it is written in the book of Moses. And so did they with the oxen. And they roasted the Passover with fire, according to the ordinance. But the other holy offerings sawed they in pots, and in cauldrons and in pans, and divided them speedily among all the people. So sawed means boiled. The parts that they used for the sacrifice, they roasted them over the fire of at the altar. The rest of the parts, they boiled them, basically, to cook the meat. Because those are some of these offerings. You come in, you offer it, and then there's a feast of the whatever's left. The priest can enjoy it, and the people enjoy this feast where they share in the spoils of these offerings. Verse 14, And afterward they made ready for themselves and for the priests, because the priests, the sons of Aaron, were busied in offering of burnt offerings and the fat until night. Therefore the Levites prepared for themselves and for the priests, the sons of Aaron. So they went long into the night to try to keep up with the demand of everybody doing the sacrifices and doing these things. Verse 15, And the singers, the sons of Asaph, were in their place according to the commandment of David, and Asaph and Heman and Jeduthun, the king's seer, and the porters waited at every gate. They might not depart from their service, for their brethren the Levites prepared for them. So all the service of the Lord was prepared the same day to keep the Passover and to burnt offerings upon the altar of the Lord according to the commandment of King Josiah. And the children of Israel that were present kept the Passover at that time in the feast of unleavened bread 7 days. And then there was no, and so the unleavened bread, they eat bread, but they don't put any leaven in it. So no yeast in it, so it doesn't rise. It's not corrupted. It's pure flour and water, basically. They mix it so it makes more of like a sopapilla or a tortilla type bread versus one that would rise and be a little more fluffy. That's the Feast of the Unleavened Bread. Basically, you have no leaven in your bread, no yeast for 7 days. Verse 18, and there was no Passover like to that kept in Israel from the days of Samuel the prophet. Neither did all the kings of Israel keep such a Passover as Josiah kept. So that was a heck of a Passover if you go back to Samuel the prophet's time. And the priests and the Levites and all Judah and Israel that were present and the inhabitants of Jerusalem. In the 18th year of the reign of Josiah was this Passover kept. After all this, when Josiah had prepared the temple, Necho, king of Egypt, came up to fight against Carchemish by Euphrates, and Josiah went out against him. So Josiah and Israel is going out to fight against Egypt as Egypt is going in against Carchemish, basically. Verse 21, but he sent ambassadors to him, saying, what have I to do with thee, thou king of Judah? I come not against thee this day, but against the house wherewith I have war. For God commanded me to make haste. Forbear thee from meddling with God, who is with me, that he destroy thee not. So this is Pharaoh Necho saying, hey, I don't have a beef with you, Judah. I'm fighting Carchemish. I'm not fighting you, basically. So my God is with me. He told me to go fight, basically. Probably used a divination or something to do that, or had a vision or something. And so he's going to go do this, fight, and he's like, God is with me. Don't get in my way or you'll be destroyed. Now, a lot of scholars believe, you might be thinking, who's this Pharaoh Necho? A lot of scholars believe that this is Pharaoh Necho II. Okay, Pharaoh Necho II is the ruler of the 26th dynasty in Egypt. So this is one of the newer kingdom, almost newer kingdom eras, basically. One of the later ones in Egypt, basically. In fact, what's interesting is the 26th dynasty is one of the few Egyptian kingdoms left when Egyptians ruled Egypt, basically, because soon we're going to get into what's known as the Ptolemies. So the Ptolemies are the pharaohs of Egypt that were Greek in descent. They weren't Egyptian in descent. So the Greeks come down and they end up basically occupying Egypt because Egypt's not a world power anymore. That's going to transition a little while. Assyria and Babylon are still going to do some fighting with Egypt. And so there's still some things going on, but we're getting to that point where the Ptolemies are going to take over. And so just remember that whenever you hear the word Ptolemies, it starts with a P, P-T-O-L-E-M-Y, Ptolemy. The P is silent, of course. That's Greek people are running Egypt. They're ruling Egypt at the time. So Egypt has really collapsed. Not much of a world power anymore. They're just trying to survive at this point, basically. And they're not going to do so well with that because Greeks are going to come in and take them over, and the Romans are next. And then there's not much left of Egypt. They're still around today. It's one of the oldest countries in the world, but they've transitioned and changed quite a bit since then. So verse 2, nevertheless Josiah would not turn his face from him, but disguised himself that he might fight with him, and hearkened not unto the words of Necho from the mouth of God, and came to fight in the valley of Megiddo. And the archers shot at King Josiah, and the king said to his servants, have me away, for I am sore wounded. So the archers got Josiah, basically. His servants therefore took him out of that chariot and put him in the second chariot that he had. And they brought him to Jerusalem, and he died, and was buried in one of the sepulchres of his fathers. And all Judah and Jerusalem mourned for Josiah. And Jeremiah lamented for Josiah, and all the singing men and the singing women spake of Josiah in their lamentations to this day, and made them an ordinance in Israel. And behold, they are written in the Lamentations. Now, Lamentations is another book we're going to get into that Jeremiah wrote about the people. So this is the time of King Josiah. Jeremiah is the prophet. He is the prophet at the time when Lehi was around as well. Remember, all this is happening. Lehi is raising his family during these battles, during these things that are happening right now. Verse 26, now the rest of the acts of Josiah and his goodness, according to that which is written in the law of the Lord, and his deeds, first and last, behold, they are written in the book of the kings of Israel and Judah. So if you want, you can look up into 2 Kings, let's see, 23. 2 Kings 23 is more about the life of Josiah and his kingdom. So let's jump over to our next chapter to learn more, as Josiah is now dead and we need a new king.